right. Rocking stage. Wow, cool. Hi. Anybody remember this? What is it? Coverflow. Yes, it's Coverflow. It's a thing that shipped with iTunes 7. Later on made its way to iPhone. If you rotated your phone, you would get like this flicking line of covers. That's cool, right? I recreated it using web technologies. I think it's nice. Now here's the kicker. This is only HTML and CSS. Not a single line of JavaScript was used for this. Crazy, right? Yeah, you can clap that up. So, how did I build it? Let's start with the basics. Let's start with the markup. This here is the markup. We have an unordered list items in there, and then every cover is an image tag in there. Don't forget to set the width and the height, by the way, very important attributes. As goes for our CSS, we start off with a little CSS reset, because this just makes our life easier to write any further CSS down the line. And then the first thing we actually do is to make sure that all the covers are on one horizontal line. We do this by setting display inline block onto the list items themselves. That way they sit next to each other instead of underneath each other. And then we also add white space no wrap to the wrapper to make sure that they don't wrap when they hit the outer edge. So now they sit at one horizontal line. We also make our list wrapper scroll. We do it by limiting the width, so we set a max width on there, and we also set overflow scroll so that we have a little scroll bar right there. And finally, we add some margin and some padding just to make it like position it on the screen, give it some breathing space. If you couldn't follow with all this, what this code means, this is what we have right now. Just a horizontal strip of covers, and we can scroll through them. All right. But if you look closely, if I stop scrolling, the covers don't nicely align in the very middle of the screen, which is a bit unfortunate. We can solve that, again, using CSS. We can use scroll snapping for this. By adding these two lines of CSS, scroll snap type X mandatory and then scroll snap line center, we can make it so that the covers snap at the very center when you stop scrolling. It now looks like this. My cursor is there on the screen at the very center of it so that you can see that it actually aligns with the center. The cool thing is, if you use your arrow keys, this will now also scroll and snap. So if you press left or right, these will like also advance one cover at a time. I think this is like cool. Just 2 lines of CSS, get this effect, right? Now, if you looked closely at the original demo, the album covers had some reflection added to it, like at the bottom. Now, you might think, whoa, dude, this is impossible in CSS. It's easy. It's 1 line of CSS. Using WebKit Box Reflect, we can add reflection on there. Unfortunately, this is a proprietary property, which landed in Safari at first, and then later on made it into Chromium. No support in Firefox, unfortunately. You can use something like the element function to make it work in Firefox, but I'll just leave it up to you as an exercise to continue later. Cool. We have this. Look at those reflections. Wow, I like this. Now on to the good stuff. How can we make these covers rotate and make sure that they rotate like as we scroll through this? Well, enter this very new feature, which is called scroll-linked animations. Now, this is a really exciting feature. This is really crazy because these are animations controlled by scroll running off the main thread, so on the compositor. They don't block your main thread, and you don't need any JavaScript for this at all. Browser support is less exciting at this moment. It's being actively developed in Chromium, and we hope to ship it by the end of the year in Chrome. The Firefox folks are also working on it, which is also nice, and no word from WebKit, unfortunately. So how do we do it? Well, I said scrolling to animations linked to scroll. So we start off with the animation part. The animation looks like this. It's a set of keyframes that rotates the cover. So at the 0% mark, the cover will be rotated like this. And at the 50% mark, the albums will be facing you, so they won't be rotated. And when at the 100% mark, they will be facing again sideways, but on the other side. These are the keyframes. We link them up using a regular animation property. We give the name of the keyframes there. Oh, and don't forget the perspective on the alias, because otherwise the 3D stuff won't work, actually. So now we have this animation. We have this animation running. But we want to keep track of the elements as they enter or exit the scroll port. If you've used JavaScript before, you might have heard of intersection observer, by which you can track an element as it enters a scroll port and leaves a scroll port. We now have this in CSS as well. We can create a view timeline. We give it a name, saying, hey, this is the name that we want to identify this thing with, and then we track it along the inline axis. Cool, right? We have two things right now. We have our animations and we have our view timelines, and now we need to link them together. And for this, we use a new property called animation-timeline, and we refer to the name of the view timeline that we just used before. So with these extra lines, we can link this animation to the scroll progress. It looks like this. This is in debug mode, so you can see the blue outlined boxes are the list items, and as they enter the scroll port, they drive the animation forwards, and the 50% mark is the one in the very center. To close off, here are some links for you. The first one is a CodePen collection containing a bunch of demos that also use scrolling animations. The second one is a link to the polyfill that was used to build these animations because, well, it's not supported in any browser just yet. Behind the feature flag it is, but not by default. And then the third link is a link to the HTTP 203 YouTube channel because, don't tell anyone just yet, but the next episode will be about scrolling animations. Little secret. And with that, I want to conclude. I'm Bramus. I'm a Chrome Developer Relations Engineer at Google, and I want to thank you for your attention.
Okay, thanks, Bramus.